Hello everyone, I'm Cornelia. Welcome to California Germans. Today is the first time that we are trying a different format, namely video instead of a written post. With all that social distancing happening all over the world, we just thought we wanted to get a little bit more personal. So there you go, our first video. Our topic today is traveling in times of COVID-19 and some other pressing immigration issues. We have invited Petra Korn from P. Korn Law, and she will answer a few questions for us today. She will actually join us from Germany, so let's see if she is already here. Okay, there we go. Hey Petra, how are you doing? How's Germany?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you. It's really hot over here, so I don't know how is Berlin at the moment.
It's actually getting very summery right now.
Oh, really? Okay, well, that's nice. Berlin in the summer, beautiful. So thank you very much for making the time today to be with us. Before we jump into all the questions, let me introduce you real quick. I'm really happy that you could make the time today and talk with us today. Petra Korn is the owner of P. Korn Law. She has expertise in the German and the US legal system, and she has offices in Los Angeles and Berlin. She advises clients in German law, business law, and immigration law, like dual citizenship and US citizenship. Would you like to add anything to that, Petra?
No, that's perfect.
It's perfect? Okay, awesome. So our topic today is traveling in times of COVID-19, even though we will cover a few other immigration issues as well. COVID-19 has obviously caused a lot of disruptions in our lives lately. Apart from social distancing and the shelter-in-place order, COVID-19 has greatly impacted travel. Now, as we are nearing summer, there is still a lot of confusion for many about traveling in terms of immigration and visa issues. And that's what we want to address here today. So let's start out with our first question. Are President Trump's travel and visa restrictions still in place, and who do they affect? Petra.
Yes, as you probably read, there were several proclamations issued, like at the end of January, end of February, then in March, several ones, and the latest ones, like at the end of May, where they actually added Brazil to the travel ban as well. The US citizens are not subject to the proclamations, and also lawful permanent residents of the United States. Mm-hmm. They're not affected as well. And then there are several other exceptions. And some of them are that obviously the immediate family, like a spouse of a US citizen or a lawful permanent resident, are not subject to the proclamations. But otherwise, as far as I know, as of right now, they're still in effect.
Oh, okay, thank you. So if someone is here in the US right now on an L visa or an O visa, or let's say a student visa like the F1 or the J1 visa, can he or she travel to Germany to see family right now, or do they have to worry about that they won't be able to get back to the US upon their return?
Well, that's a little bit more complicated because it's a non-immigrant visa, the L or the J visa, mm-hmm. or F1. And so they're not exempted from the proclamations. So that means they could leave the United States, but coming back would be an issue because, as you probably heard, coming back to the United States from the Schengen area, the EU, China, Brazil is an issue. So
yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, that means if that person, that student, has been in any of those areas within the last 14 days before returning to the United States, they would most likely not be able to come back.
So they should really...
Ideally, I mean, it's probably not practical, but if they spend time in any area, you know, not in China, not in Brazil, not any of the Schengen areas, EU, then they would be able to go back. But if they want to go to Germany to visit family members, it's probably not very practical to add another 14 days in another country.
Right. That's correct. So hold on, but they can't even go to Germany because Germany is not exempt either, right? So if they go to Germany to visit family and they want to come back, so that's the Schengen area, right? So in that sense, right? Okay, yeah. So basically, for everyone who's holding an L visa or O visa or a student visa, it's better not to travel right now and to stay in the US. Is that correct?
Ideally, yes.
Okay. If so, travel from Germany to the US is still restricted. How about extended family members in Germany who have a B2 visa? Can they come out for summer to visit grandkids, for example? Because it's the same thing then.
Yeah, they're not lawful, then they don't have a green card and they're not US citizens. So those people, I mean, US citizens, lawful permanent residents are exempt. But all non-immigrant visas, if they spend time in Germany, they want to come back to the United States, it's the same issue. If they have been in Germany,
okay, that makes sense now. Okay,
then they cannot come back.
Yeah, okay. Next, I have a few questions regarding traveling to Germany at this time, if you can get a flight as a German citizen, or if your flight hasn't been canceled, like mine. Let's say a family has planned a trip to Germany, and the scenario is the following: the mother and the children are dual citizens and have a German passport, but the husband or the father only has a US passport. Will all of them be able to enter Germany at this moment, or will there be any problems?
Well, there is still on a certain website, which we can link later on, there is still, you can actually check that and see that there is still, I think it's like orange, the travel advisory is like to avoid unnecessary travel. That is still in effect right now. But you could enter Germany for personal reasons. It's possible. For the husband, that is American citizen, ideally he would go with the spouse and the children. It would be an issue if he would arrive later. If the whole family enters together and for personal reasons, let's say there's a funeral, a wedding, something else which you can prove, or you have property in Germany or in any, you know, in Spain, and you have to go there and you can show and document that you have a personal reason to enter, they would most likely let you in. But for vacation, if you just say, I just want to spend the summer there, I think that would cause an issue. And especially there, you have to also watch the quarantine requirements based on
that's actually, I wanted to ask you that later. Actually, yeah, exactly. So there is quarantine still in place.
It depends on the state. You know, that's also very confusing and it changes right now. And this is why everything is a little bit...
it's a fluid situation in a way, right?
Very fluid situation, and that change. I mean, there are so many changes lately, constantly. So each state handles it very differently, like with the quarantine. And but there is still technically, if you enter Germany from the US, you know, any state outside of the Schengen area, coming from the US, technically the advisory is to go and self-quarantine for 14 days.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And how, now that we are already in the quarantine issue here a little bit, out of interest, how do they make sure that people are actually following this and that they are actually going into quarantine, self-quarantine for 2 weeks? Is there some measure in place in Germany right now that they send someone to your door to check, or do you know anything in that direction?
I have not heard how they enforce it for people coming from the US. I heard actually a situation where the friend of a friend of mine, one of her neighbors, she had symptoms, and then from the health department, they asked who she has been in contact with within the last 14 days or something. And then my friend's friend actually was on that list, and they sent her in basically quarantine for 14 days, and they checked on her all the time, and they actually showed up on her door. I mean, I doubt that it's feasible to really do that on a larger scale, so I really don't know how they would enforce it. I think it's more like a recommendation, and they hope that people are going to follow follow it, and actually for the safety of everyone outside. But that is the only story that I heard where the person actually, she received phone calls on a daily basis, sometimes several times a day, and they showed up at her door to make sure that, you know.
Interesting. That's quite intense.
It's literally the only story that I heard where they actually do that.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of
Yeah.
hard to, especially during summer when, obviously they're trying to open the borders. I think that's
exactly
hard to really do on a larger scale.
Yeah, but still there is, we can provide the links. I mean, but there are
Good. Okay.
Wherever you want to go, you should check on a particular state if there's still quarantine, and there is information available.
Okay, perfect. What about if a couple wants to relocate to Germany at the moment? And we have a little bit the same scenario like before, like with the family. Let's say the one partner is a German citizen and the other partner is a US citizen. But obviously they're not coming there to spend maybe just a few weeks with family, but actually want to really move over to Germany and relocate, right? What do they need to be aware of? Will the US citizen partner have problems to enter the country because obviously he doesn't have a German passport? And is that reason enough that they say, okay, I want to relocate? Or do they actually have to have a document that proves that, they want to move to Germany and have something in place there?
I mean, I think it's the same situation where technically a US citizen can enter Germany for 90 days without having a visa, but then he or she would have to actually go to the Ausländerbehörde and get the proper Aufenthaltsgenehmigung, the residence permit to actually be there for longer than the 90 days. And right now that would be an issue because the offices, the same, I mean, they're kind of slowly reopening, but they only give appointments in person for emergency situations. So that could be an issue then. I mean, if they can avoid relocating right now and maybe postpone it a few weeks or something, because until June 15th, the travel restrictions to Germany are still in place, and afterwards the situation may change.
Oh, okay. So that's good.
I mean, advice. A lot of things change right now. the USCIS is slowly starting to do naturalization ceremonies, and I think the same will happen in Germany. Well, that they
Okay.
slow.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So that's actually good advice to wait until June 15th, you said, right? And see what
See what
the
happens.
regulations.
But I mean, right now there are no appointments available in person unless there is really an emergency situation.
Okay, okay.
Same the U.S. embassies at Ausländerbehörde, whatever people have to get done. It's more online via mail.
Mm-hmm.
Cannot just go there to apply for a residence permit right now.
Right. So in that case, actually, that we just mentioned, the U.S. Partner, the partner who's a U.S. citizen, might actually have a problem to enter the country because at the moment, U.S. citizens or U.S. travelers from the U.S. are not allowed to enter Germany. Is that correct? So even though he's married to a German citizen, if he doesn't have like a very important reason, he will not be able, he probably will get some kind of problems at the customs, I could imagine.
Could be.
Okay.
It's the same for personal reasons when he enters with the spouse, could be possible, but I mean, June 15th is literally like next week.
Right, it's around the corner, so just wait basically and then decide from there on. Okay, makes sense. So we talked about the quarantine already, and you said obviously that this is also still in place, and even that might change after June 15th probably, right? There might be some other regulations in that sense as well. I have another question for you that's maybe more like a general question, but I saw that in some of the blogs mentioned. Is it true that officers and at the passport control or at the customs in Germany can actually allow or deny entry? I guess obviously it's a more general question because that applies also if there's no COVID in place, but I guess it's maybe more relevant at the moment with COVID-19 because obviously it gives a lot of power to a passport control officer.
Well, it's the same in the United States. I mean, they have, when you enter the United States, they have, it's in the discretion of the officer at, when you show your passport, if they let you in or not. And it's the same discretion here in Germany. So the same rule applies actually.
Because it's the same thing. Okay, yeah, I wasn't actually aware of that, but it makes sense that it's the same thing. Yeah. Let's move on to some questions regarding immigration issues that have been caused by COVID-19. Because of the COVID-19 shutdown, many have experienced delays or cancellations in all kinds of immigration issues. People, for example, who had an interview scheduled as the final step in the process of getting their green card done, suddenly find themselves without an appointment. Worse, their visa to stay legally in the US might be about to expire. Do you have some advice for them?
Well, this is, so let's address the green card. So you asked about interviews scheduled to become a US citizen?
Well, actually not the naturalization process yet, but just for the green card, basically. So people, obviously that's similar to the naturalization process. There have been interviews canceled there as well. So yeah, that's one question. When can they expect that will, that they will get another interview or that they can proceed with their whole process to move forward?
Well, the USCIS basically was shut down, and as on May 26th, they actually announced that they slowly reopening some offices, and that started on June 4th. So they start to resume in-person services such as interviews and naturalization ceremonies. So they will send out new notices for interviews by mail. And yeah, so I think I actually heard from some of my clients, they were waiting, that was for the naturalization ceremonies, they were all canceled, and they have now received new appointments. So they're
Oh,
starting
good.
again.
Okay, so it's basically they just have to wait, but it's in the process of rescheduling all
Yeah.
that stuff.
Like on June 4th, they started resuming in-person services again.
Okay, okay. Still though, if someone is in the place that their basically their visa, that obviously you have to have something in place before you can apply for a green card, right? That makes you stay legally here in the US. So if someone is in that, you know, strange situation right now that he obviously has to wait for his interview appointment to be rescheduled and, you know, get back into that whole process to get his green card. But in the meantime, he isn't here on that visa that is about to expire. So what can he actually do? I mean, is there something in place? And that maybe applies for the same for the naturalization process. Is there something in place that they, in that case, extend the visa so that he can stay here legally until he gets his interview for the green card process? And the same for the naturalization process, people that are waiting to finalize their process. Is there something in place that helps them to expedite, maybe to extend their green cards until they get a naturalization ceremony appointment to basically be US citizens? So those, I think two things go maybe hand in hand a little bit.
Well, there is those are actually several questions.
Okay.
Different issues, because if the person has a green card, and even if the green card is expired, the permanent resident status is still valid. So the
Okay.
green card itself is basically the document allowing you to travel outside the United States and to return.
Mm-hmm.
Even when the date on the green card is expired, you are still considered a lawful permanent resident as long as you remain in the United States. You just cannot.
Oh, okay. So these people won't be able to, for example, see family now in the summer if they had plans to do so.
Yeah. You
Okay.
cannot leave the United States with an expired green card.
Mm-hmm.
Come back. That's the issue.
Okay.
As long as the person stays in the United States, that person is allowed to work, and so then you just have to wait for the naturalization to take place and become a US citizen. With the visa, it depends what visa it is. You know, like then you have to differentiate between non-immigrant and immigrant visa. But for example, for people, I have a friend of mine, her mother is 93 years old. She is pretty healthy, but still, you know, she is in the risk group, so she cannot travel right now. But she has definitely, I mean, she was able to spend like 90 days in the States, but then she would have had to leave. Mm-hmm. Right? Otherwise, she's an overstay. Right. You come on a visa waiver from Germany on ESTA, then you can only stay in the United States for 90 days and then you have to leave. So if a person like this elderly lady cannot leave, there is right now, because normally you cannot extend the visa waiver program, the ESTA, right? Okay. There is no way to extend the 90-day time period, but there is actually special circumstances right now where there is an application form that can be filed so that the person has an extra 30 days to leave the country. But obviously this document has to be filed in a timely manner prior to the 90 days being up. But there is actually a way to do that. And the USCIS, for those situations, they have it's called a special situation page.
Okay.
So on the website, there are several options where a person can actually get information on what to do.
Oh, okay. Okay. So at least there is some extension that they can still
Yeah.
have a legal status.
Or the extension of stay or change of status. And there's different forms that need to be filed in order to accomplish that.
My last question is in regards to the many international students that wanted to start college here in the US. They have obviously gone through that whole admissions process, they have been admitted, and now they suddenly are stuck in their home countries since they can't get a student visa issued. Do you have any news if the US will expedite their student visas on time for fall, that before college starts, so that these students can come in to the country? Or do you have any news on that, or is there you have some suggestions where they can find more information on it?
I don't know if they will expedite it. I'm sure that they will take this into consideration, but I'm sure that the USCIS is very, overloaded right now with all kinds of issues and getting their offices and everything started again.
Right.
So, but I will definitely check, and then we can provide a link. But I mean, right now I'm not sure if they will focus on students and expedite the visas, but.
Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. We'll just wait for the link. Maybe there is a great link that gives them some solutions. Okay, so this brings us actually to the end of our conversation today. Thank you so much, Petra, for making the time, and especially spending your evening with us here today, since over there it's already, I don't know, 9 or like 10 o'clock or something. So that was absolutely helpful to get all your answers for all those questions. And I really hope that we could clarify a few things for our listeners as well. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And if you have any additional immigration questions or would like to see a complete different topic discussed here, please send us an email to CaliforniaGermans@gmail.com. And who knows, it might just become the topic of our next video. And as we mentioned earlier, Petra will give us a few links that we will post actually in our regular post where the video will be included. So please check those out. And yeah, have a wonderful week, and we will see you soon. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.